Hey, what is going on? It is Crypto Bobby, and it is another bloody day in the crypto markets. Bitcoin down over 7%. The vast majority of other cryptocurrencies are down as well. You're on-chain FX right now. Literally every single crypto asset that they have out of the 65 listed is in the red against the US dollar today, which is pretty crazy. Pop over to CoinMarketCap, and we are down about $30 billion in total market capitalization for the crypto markets. And since we're sitting at about 300, or at the start of the day, 24 hours ago, we were sitting at about 340 billion, down about $30 billion or so at this point in time, maybe a little bit more. Almost down 10% for the entire market cap, which is pretty incredible to think about in the course of 24 hours, where really, to my knowledge, there hasn't been any negative news driving this. At least in my mind, there really hasn't been anything crazy or negative that's gone on to drive this continued sell-off right now, but obviously things are selling off pretty substantially. So today I want to talk about, I think in some respects, a return to quality in the space, and how that is going to develop and how it's going to continue to develop in the future. And we'll hop into all of that as we go forward. I just got back from Token Fest as well, so my brain is mush, my brain is jumble. Took the red eye back from San Francisco to New York, and my brain is total jumble. But Token Fest was interesting in San Francisco. I think, even with the marketplace itself, with the crypto environment right now from an investment standpoint, there's still an incredible amount of talented people working in the space, an incredible amount of innovation going on. Also, just as many scams and crap projects as before as well. But a couple of the things that I was just looking at when it came down to Token Fest, and I'm probably going to formalize my thoughts a little bit more as far as some interesting projects and some interesting people that I saw there. But like I said, the excitement in the space isn't dying at all. I really didn't get a feel that people were any less excited about what was going on at Token Fest than they were thinking about Bitcoin Miami, which was about a week to 10 days after the massive bull run of December and January. So I think people are still very much excited about the space. A lot of people are a little bit apprehensive about, obviously, the downward momentum and the price movement, but that's not preventing people from still building businesses, products, services around cryptocurrency. So I was happy to see people continuing to build services that will be provided to people that if and when the market does come back, which I think at some point in time it will, they're able to properly service those individuals, because whether the market's been going up or down, they've been heads down working on a project and delivering something valuable, which I think is really the most important thing. Now, when we pop over to the dominance of the total market capitalization, I'll pop over here to the Bitcoin dominance, and it has been steadily rising back up from its low point in, put this chart in the past month or so, but it has been steadily rising over the past month. From February 18th, exactly a month ago, the Bitcoin dominance was at 36%. Right now, we are up to 43%, which is a pretty solid movement when you consider a number of other things that have gone on. We had all the way back to 2018. The actual Bitcoin dominance bottomed out at about 32%, with Ethereum and some other cryptocurrencies making pretty massive runs. What I'm looking at now, and kind of what I'm thinking about, is what will be a return to quality projects in the space. I do think that the overall market cap, the overall investment climate of December and January was probably not the most healthy one. There were multiple cryptocurrencies, crypto assets that just pumped a massive amount, and that were not nearly as valuable as the run-up suggested. I mean, when you have Dogecoin worth a couple $1 billion, you got to treat that every single time as your next. The next time Dogecoin is worth a couple $1 billion, that means that you should sell off the cryptocurrency market and buy back in lower, because it'll happen again. Seems like it'll happen again. But one of the big reasons I kind of think this, and I do think this is going to happen more and more often, is actually exchange delistings. One of the big things a lot of people always point to is Coinbase, when are you going to list Ripple? Binance, when are you going to list WanChain? When's this happening? When's that happening? The big thing for me now is not going to be evaluating as much exchange listings as it is going to be exchange delistings. And this is, I think, on the backs of a lot of what happened, or the comments that have been made by the SEC and by some other organizations, by some other regulatory bodies out there in regards to the nature of trading unregistered securities on an exchange. If you're based in the US like a Bittrex or a Poloniex, obviously that's going to cause a number of problems. If you are a centralized exchange, there is a C-level, there is a C-suite, there are people there that will potentially get in quite a bit of trouble if they are not compliant with what the regulators are telling them to do. Bittrex is taking those steps by delisting. They announced in the past week or so that in the next 2 weeks, I believe on March 30th, they will be delisting about 80, I believe it's 80 something cryptocurrencies at some point in time. They will be delisting a vast number of these cryptocurrencies. And I personally don't believe that Bittrex is going to be the only one doing this. I've definitely seen heard some rumors about other places evaluating something similar, because that's the big name of the game right now, is just compliance with regulation. And if you are an exchange, you're not going to, for the most part, if you are a centralized exchange, you are not going to put yourself out there in exchange for a little bit higher volume if it means getting your entire exchange shut down or having an unregistered security trading on your exchange. And I think companies are taking this threat seriously from the government, and they are starting to look at potentially delisting not high quality crypto assets. So that's something that I really do think you want to keep in mind, is don't just look in the future. Everybody always wants to find, when is XYZ company going to get listed, or when is XYZ coin going to get listed on this exchange. The thing that I would be potentially concerned about, depending upon what platform you use and where your money might be, is I would potentially be concerned about, is my cryptocurrency going to get delisted from somewhere else? Because if it gets delisted from a place like Bittrex, that's obviously a big deal. That is, depending upon the size, the scope, that is a fairly big deal, and will reduce the liquidity of the project and be a negative point in the future. So something you certainly want to take a look at and think about moving forward here as well. And on that point, with the delistings, so Donnie Crypto, at Donnie Crypto on Twitter, some of you may follow him. He's been on Crypto Happy Hour a couple times. He tweeted this out, and I thought it was pretty interesting. And in some respects, you can definitely argue the truth of this tweet, where he says, as far as I'm concerned, the only two certainties right now are Bitcoin and Monero. And I don't necessarily disagree with him. I do think that there is going to be a consolidation of high quality. I do believe most people are going to start looking at their portfolio as we continue to drop and say, okay, I'm either going to get totally out of cryptocurrency because I'm losing everything, I'm losing my face, and I'm getting worked, or I want to stay in crypto, but I want to find higher quality projects that aren't going to wreck me as hard as some of these other projects have. So, and when you think about that, what are the two biggest names, at least in my mind, that have come to fruition? I do think Bitcoin is obviously numero uno. I do think Monero as well. I've started to build a position in Monero more recently. I still have Zcash as well, but from the decentralization of the Monero governance and the development team and kind of some of the use cases around Monero, I do think, and the potential Ledger integration that's coming up, I do think that there's a lot of positive forces and positive momentum. And Monero and Bitcoin are the two of, not the only by any stretch. You have Litecoin, you have a number of other cryptocurrencies, but Monero and Bitcoin are two of those pure cryptocurrencies that are not as much ERC-20. Like, I believe that the regulations and the guidelines on Bitcoin and on Monero and on something like Litecoin or Bitcoin Cash, that's all fairly straightforward, in the sense where this is basically, it is a mineable, decentralized cryptocurrency. It's not a security. Some of these companies that have had ICOs and maybe sold them to U.S. citizens or whatever it might be, they might be in more of a trouble, because the fundraising method is very much different than mining Monero on your desktop or whatever it might be, or having a freaking Monero mining farm somewhere. So that's something I think you want to take into consideration. You want to look at is if you do believe the market has more room to consolidate, if you do believe that, then I'm personally looking at consolidating my portfolio a little bit further just into what I would consider to be the high quality projects. And I'm not just talking about Bitcoin and Monero here. It could be ERC20 tokens that have had ICOs that just have an incredible amount of progress that they're making in a very strong team and tech and a use case that you think really makes sense. It doesn't have to not be, an ICO. It could be a platform. It could be whatever. But I would just continue to do your due diligence in this process now to research as much as possible and find the assets that you feel like are actually worth the time. I think a lot of us, myself included, and I think I saw somebody else. I think it was Ron Newer, who I saw at Token Fest briefly from CNBC South Africa. I believe he tweeted about this recently where he mentioned personally, I bought a bunch of random crypto during the bull run, and I look back and I say, what the hell was I thinking buying this stuff? What was I doing? And I think that's kind of happened to a lot of people out there. You get all aggressive and you make some money on something and you say, okay, I just made a bunch of money here. I'm going to move it over and I'm going to make more money here because it hasn't done that yet, or whatever the reasoning was. And I think a lot of people did that because everybody was making money in the bull run. It was basically impossible not to make money in the bull run. So you literally, unless you were just 100% in on Tether, you couldn't lose money in the November, December, early January bull run. It was crazy. It was ridiculous. It was fantastic. But now if you go back and you look at, in some cases, if it's a medium to long-term portfolio, if you look at some of the assets you purchased back in December, January, November, when the prices were going nuts, take a look at those assets and think to yourself, hey, is this something that I'm really confident in, that I really think is going to make a meaningful impact on my portfolio, actually have some strong tech to get across the finish line? I would definitely check that out and evaluate that to see if it's something that really is worth your time in the long run. And if it's not, ditch it into something you have more conviction about. One of the last things, too, that I want to touch on is the thought process around all-time highs. And I personally look at all-time highs a decent amount, whether it's just percentage down if it's on-chain FX or the previous price of an all-time high. A number of different things. I do think it's an interesting way to approach things because, especially in crypto, if something has gotten to its all-time high previously, it has almost every single time exceeded that at some point in the future. That is not information, or that is not something that is necessarily guaranteed to happen, though. So it certainly makes it difficult. But one thing I think people are doing now is looking at the percentage down from all-time high and saying, wow, this is incredible. I'm getting Cardano at an 88% discount, or I'm getting Neo at a 68% discount, or Bitcoin Cash at a 78% discount, whatever floats your boat. The one thing I would say, and those are certainly in a lot of respects maybe more legit projects, but if you were to scroll down to a couple other projects that maybe haven't done so hot, so well, you scroll down, you can take a look at those projects and evaluate if you really do think that those projects will ever return to their all-time high. I think it's an important thing to take a look at, because there were certain cryptocurrencies out there like Tron with a $15 billion valuation at one point, I believe. Dogecoin was over $1 billion, which is hilarious but scary at the same point in time. There were a high number of products and platforms out there that really had no business being ranked that highly. And now that we're down 80%, you might look at that and say, oh, wow, that's juicy. If that goes back up, returns back to its all-time high, I'm basically making 300, 400% on my investment. So that's all it needs to do is just go back to all-time highs. I don't think everything out there is going to go back to its all-time high. I'll say that pretty clearly. I think the market is going to consolidate into quality projects. I think institutional money is still coming into the space, and it will consolidate into high-quality projects and support a lot of things in the in the medium to long term. So it should be exciting to see how that ends up developing. If you are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, the notify bell. That'd be fantastic. And if you are listening on the podcast, I would love for you to leave a rating and a review. Really helps me to spread the show around and get this out to a wider audience. So thank you so much for your time. Crypto Bobby signing out. Hope you have a good one. Peace.